Hi, welcome to the July 2015 Houston Clutter Coaching Meetup group. I'm Gayle Goddard, the Clutter Fairy. Say hi, everybody.
Hi.
Okay, today we're going to talk about taking charge of your to-do list, organizing for shame-free task management. So this is not the typical discussion of how best to do your to-do list. This is more a discussion about the things that make your to-do list fail, right? Because we've all had some version of making to-do lists, but there's a lot of people that give me feedback about, a lot of my clients in particular, I tried to do a to-do list, I tried to make that happen, and these are the results. And so I want to talk about the ways that it becomes a source of shame instead of actually being supportive and useful to you. I know that everybody tries at some point to make the list, right? Some of you are super ambitious, right? And you make a really long list. Or you make everything in your entire life. If you've ever read Getting Things Done by David Allen, he recommends that you make a huge list that's got everything on it. And you use his system to break it out and make it manageable. But that involves every to-do in all aspects of your life. So that's like the big, super fancy version. And then there's the to-do list on the scrap of paper from the back of the envelope, right? But that's all designed to be helpful task management, right? You're writing it down, like I just gave my little pitch, right? You're writing it down so that you don't forget. So we all try to do that, and then at some point, you scratch 3 things off the list, and there's still 2 things, and you write them onto the next day's list, right? Or there's 150 things on Ed's to-do list, and 5 of them are past due 745 days, right? So we all have those things that went on the list 3 years ago and you never actually get to them, right?
And those numbers were actually being kind of generous.
Okay, so in the end, if you let the stuff stay on the list for too long, if you have the experience of being really super ambitious and not able to accomplish everything on the list, at some point it starts to feel like the list is barking at you, right? You feel bad about, so I'm getting lots of nods in here. You can feel bad that it's on the list and you didn't get to scratch it off, or it's been on the list for a month or a year or 5 years, and it starts to be embarrassing, right? And people feed back to me, they tell me it makes me feel ashamed. Like they're embarrassed that it's sitting there. And then it's like all other supports. It stops being useful and helping you feel a sense of control, and it starts making you feel shameful and want to have aversion to the list, right? Then you're sort of like, la la la. When I look at the list, it makes me feel bad, so I'm not going to look at the list anymore, and then it fails, right? So I want to talk about addressing some of those things so you can have the list actually be something that it's supposed to be for you, which is supportive instead of shaming. Okay? Okay. First thing, what did I just say, right? Are you keeping the to-do list in your head? So we all have that idea that we can just hold those 3 things in our head and run to the grocery store real fast and it'll be fine. And I guess I have to say that, when you're 20, it might work better. When you're 50, not so much, right? You start to lose that ability. And even when you're 20, it's not something that you can rely on, right? It doesn't always work. And it may be that short list of 3 things, and you'll get to the store and you'll remember 2 of them, and 1 will be a blank that you can feel in your head, that there's like a blank spot that you know is supposed to have something in it, and you just can't remember what it is, right? That's what happens when you try to use your brain to remember the list instead of writing it down. So step 1, don't keep the to-do list in your head. I think that is something that we casually do and suffer the consequences all the time. And maybe it's, if you keep the list in your head and you forget things to do, then maybe you don't have to worry about them because you forgot you're supposed to do them. But usually those things circle back and poke you later, right? And say, I need to be able to, I forgot to get this stuff for the kids' school play. I forgot to mail that letter. I forgot to go buy the last ingredient for the dinner that I'm making, right? And those little things trip you up and make your life more difficult. And then suddenly you're running out to the store to get the one thing that you forgot. How many of you have gone to the store, whatever store it is, and you go home and like you drive into the driveway and remember the thing you forgot, right? It's happened to everybody like a million times, right? Which is why you need that list, because not everybody can afford to turn around and go back to the store, right? So take it out of your head, and it's an odd habit to develop, to surrender to the fact that holding it in my head seems like it should be the easiest answer, but it's the one with the most fail involved. It doesn't really support you because your brain isn't designed to do that, right? It can't prioritize amongst all of your thoughts and go, you know, Gayle needed to remember this one and this one and this one because these three are the most important out of those 50 thoughts. It can't do that. It's not designed to do that. See you later.
I'm just going to remind you to push the button.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So, although we tend to go, oh yeah, I need this, and you make the list in your head, you pause for a minute and think, and then run off, and by the time you're in the car, half of it's gone. So we have to surrender to the fact that our brains are just not going to support us in that way, and it's better to come up with a scrap of paper at the very least and get it on paper so that once it's on there, you can read it. You don't have to remember it. It's, you know, it's like flushing your brain out. It's on the piece of paper, and you can let the paper prompt you instead of trying to go fishing for it in your head. Does that help? Okay, that's one. Two, and this happens a lot with my clients. They try to be overly ambitious with today's to-do list. So let's say you have 200 things to do. Ed has, 15 clients going at once. You're always the convenient answer. Sorry. There's
a cautionary tale.
Yeah, right? Exactly. So there's a whole bunch of things that you have to work on, a whole bunch of different projects. You have your life going on, you have a spouse, you have a job, you have pets. You got to keep the house, you got to show up to work on time. There's things you have to get done at work, you got to prepare for meetings, you got to go to Belize for vacation. And so you're trying to manage all the things that are involved with that, right? So I'm going to pull a number out of there. 200 things, right? You look at that list of 200 things you got to do and you're like, oh my God, I got to do 200 things. So today I better do 20 of them. And you make that big long list of all the things you're going to try to get done today. And as soon as you step foot, taking one step away from the list and started to do it, you're already behind, right? Because you only have a 2-hour window today to do X, Y, and Z. And there's no way you're going to be able to go do this one because it involves going across town. And you're trying to accomplish this one, but you can't get that person on the phone. And so I think it's a setup for us in response to the fact that we have a long list to try to make today's list super long. And I think that creates a sense of failure up front, right? As soon as you're halfway through the day, you know you're I'm not going to get through everything, right? I think it's better and more reinforcing to make the most important list, which is much shorter, make 4 things. And if you get the 4 things done, you have time left over, you can add another one on and do something with it. But aim for the ones that absolutely will impact you today if you can accomplish them today. Make the list short, make it pertinent for today, and see if you can get through the list. Because then you get a win at the end of the day, right? You get to feel like you got to scratch everything off, and you don't feel like all those things are still on the list, but you don't get to flog yourself every day for the ones you didn't accomplish in the same way. Does that make sense? I think these are all discussions about, yes, you can manage a huge to-do list, and there's all sorts of people out there with great systems about how to manage all of your to-do lists and all of your tasks and how to categorize it and track it and prioritize it and do all that stuff. But if you're having trouble getting 3 things done a day, that system is way too complicated, right? Narrow it down to a place where you get a win, make the list short, and you still got 3 things done today, right? Which is better than 0. This is like the Clutter Fairy, what's the word I'm looking for? This is like my perfect advice for all things. 1 step is better than 0. 1 little step on a project, 1 little thing off the list is better than 0. So if you're stuck, if you're frozen, if you're overwhelmed, getting those 3 things done out of the 200 is still 3 things down the road, right? It's worth it. And as you have, success with little increments, they will get bigger. You will get better. You'll get more successful at it. But you got to have practice with getting a win, right? And working it out. And there's some people who they're bounded by their energy level. They're bounded by their, access to a car. They only have 2 hours a day when they're not completely scheduled with their work and their kids and all the other things that they have to do, and they only have a window this big to accomplish stuff. Well, you can't put 8 hours of work in 2 hours of time. So if you can get something done in that 2 hours, that's got to be the win for you. And we do have times. I was just talking to somebody who's she works at a NICU, neonatal intensive care unit, and she was talking about she wants all the nurses to be as dedicated as she is and do, that they do more instead of do the bare minimum. And then she said, but I remember when I was younger and I had little kids, like as soon as my time was up, I was out of there because I had to go home and take care of the kids and do all this stuff about the kids. Now the kids are grown, I have more flexibility, I can pour more of myself into the work. So I think we all have times in our life where we're bounded by what's going on with us physically, what's going on with us at work, our family structure, and you're going to only have so much time to accomplish stuff. Make your to-do list match the amount of time you have to give, right? For those projects that are overwhelming in their time commitment, to get them done, cultivate the habit of making incremental progress. So what I mean by that is, if you have a 4-hour project and you're never going to have 4 hours free, you got to give yourself a 1-hour slot to work. I'm going to work on the project for an hour. I'm going to work on it for 15 minutes. I'm going to work on it for 5. A lot of people get frozen by what they feel is the vastness of the project. And I hear that a lot as well. Like there's so much to do. The person that I was seeing today in Clear Lake, she moved into her house, and we were trying to unpack her office. And she said, I got up this morning and I was just like, oh my God, I don't want to unpack the boxes. But by the time we were done, we'd unpacked 30 boxes. And she was doing a happy dance. But the idea that standing there looking at those 30 boxes was completely shutting her down and being overwhelming. And my job is to come in and say, yeah, we don't have to do 30 simultaneously. We only have to do this one right here. We only have to take that one step. And 6 hours later, we had stepped through 30 boxes. You can approach all your projects the same way. If the time commitment is huge, and you know that time commitment, nobody ever wants to work on something for 6 hours straight, except me. Or people want to do fun stuff, like you want to go hang out at the pool for 6 hours, right? But you don't want to do your taxes for 6 hours, right? So the ones that people avoid are the things that they have to do but they don't really want to do. And they're waiting for that magic 6 hours when they're going to feel like it and they're going to be free, which never happens, right? So make the habit of investing in incremental progress. I can do an hour. I'm going to do an hour and walk away. And I'll be an hour farther down the path. Now, people can talk to me about it's not as efficient, you have to start and stop, yeah, whatever. Because if you're not getting it done at all, if you're not starting it, it doesn't matter how efficient it would be if you did, right? So you might as well accept that this 6-hour project is really going to take you 7, because you're going to do it in 1-hour increments until the end, and you're going to have to ramp up and down a little bit. Who cares? At the end, you'll still be done, right? That's the goal. So the next part of the idea of doing incremental steps is for bigger projects. When you're working in a bigger project, I think that we tend to look at the whole and be intimidated by the whole and then be unwilling to take one step forward, right? So my analogy for this is look at the tree in front of you, not the forest, right? Everybody looks at the forest and the project looks super overwhelming and they don't want to move forward because, right? But if you can look at the tree in front of you and put that item on the to-do list, then you can accomplish that one thing, and that's that incremental project movement is the definition of moving a project forward, right? You're taking the next step, you're doing another piece of the project, you're moving it along. So although that usually, you think of project management and that kind of incremental progress in a business environment, you can extrapolate that to the laundry if you want. It works the same. If the idea of doing the laundry, and let me tell you, every mother of kids never gets the laundry from start to finish. It's just an impossible task for people to do that and get it all the way up and put away at the end. Like if you're a super mom, if you can wash, dry, fold, and hang and put away everything and keep up with that all the time, you win the prize, right? Because it's just something that people choke on somewhere along the way. I often find bundles of clean clothes sitting in the room in a basket waiting to go in, and then the cat starts sleeping on them and they have to be washed again, right? This is something that happens for my clients a lot, is trying to keep up with from start to finish. Well, if your life doesn't allow you to do that, then focus on the next project. Like first you got to get them in the washing machine. If you can get them that far before you go to bed, the next day you can move it another step forward. So instead of putting wash clothes on the to-do list, you're put the clothes in the washing machine on the to-do list. And if you accomplish that by the end of the day, woohoo! If you put them in there and started the machine, that's part of the process, right? You're moving it along. The next day, put them in the dryers on the list, and you put them in there and scratch it off. Hanging them up can be a whole separate task that you do 2 days later. And being okay with moving along in those kind of increments in between. People that have ADD, they're jumping around all the time, right? Jump, 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 jump. They can never stay with the task from start to finish. It's too boring, right? And they're easily looking for something more entertaining to go on. So if you have to do that, if you're trying to, focus on cleaning, doing the laundry, go spend 2 hours doing something over here, come back, do another piece. It doesn't matter as long as you keep making another little incremental step. And so my point is about the to-do list, don't put the big project on the to-do list, do the taxes, because that's a 20-hour project, right? You're never going to get scratched off the list. What you want to do is put the first thing about the taxes on there, which is find all the 2014 paperwork and put it in a box. That's the first thing on your list. And you can put that on there, and when you get to the end of that, you can scratch it off and call yourself, woohoo! That's the tree in front of you. Then the next tree is, okay, now I got to take all this paper and sort it into its categories or whatever. Put that on the list, scratch it off when it's done. So you don't want to help yourself feel unaccomplished by putting a big project on the to-do list that has 15 steps in it, and you can never scratch it off until you get through all 15 steps, right? You want to put the next tree in front of you on the to-do list so that when you accomplish getting past that tree, you can scratch it off, right? And just making that little piece moves you down the road, and then one day you'll wake up and suddenly there'll be a finished project and you'll be so excited, right? Another analogy about this is an artist who's painting a picture, right? They're taking 1,000 steps. They're doing 1,000 steps to end up with a painting at the end. So although they're enjoying the idea of painting, they think that's fun, right? So they're willing to stand there and do 1,000 steps to make the painting happen. But it's not so much fun trying to do the laundry that way. So break it down and put those pieces on your to-do list in the order that they have to be done, in the time when you have the time frame to accomplish them. There's no point in, like today, I was in Clear Lake all day, I'm going to be here all night, not a whole lot getting done in my house today. So there's nothing about my house on my to-do list today, because I know it's not happening, right? So you know that there's some days you got time and you can do that kind of stuff, and there's some days that you don't. Match your steps, the next step, to the day that you can work it in, and get yourself one step farther down the road, right? This is an Ed one. Acknowledge the true value of your time. So this is where we talk about the things that go on the to-do list because you think you should do them. It seems like a really good idea, and I should fill in the blank. But a lot of people put things like that on their to-do list when they have absolutely no intention of ever really doing it. So then it just sits there and mocks them. But the other part of their brain is saying, yeah, I'm never going to do that. I don't have time for that. It's never going to come to the top of the list. I have too much going on. That's not fun. That makes yuck, right? There's no point in torturing yourself with something you're never really going to do. And if the thing that you need to do, the example that he gave was, lots of people like to cut magazine articles out, cut things out of the newspaper, right? I'm getting a lot of giggles in here for that. You cut paper out because you're going to file it and sort it by category, right? She is just giggling into her hand right now. Okay. Busted, right? Okay. So lots of people do that. I'm going to cut stuff out. I'm going to organize them. I'm going to make it all, categoried and have files and yada, 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 right? So what's the first step? Cutting out the paper. That task gets done. And all the rest of that, never happens, right? Because you don't ever really want to spend the time to do all that organizing. You just want to protect yourself from losing that piece of paper, right? So your time is more valuable than all the time it takes to get it into the organized picture that you have in your mind. The fantasy land where every magazine cutout that you have goes into the beautiful organized system over here somewhere, right? So you can imagine that it's all wonderful there, but you can never imagine actually making that happen, right? Your time is too valuable. You have so many other things to do, and sitting around for the 4 hours it's going to take to realize that dream is not coming to the top of the list this decade, right? When you're not working full time, maybe. But right now, not going to happen. So acknowledging that your time is valuable, and the things that are truly important are the ones that are going to get done, and the things that are a fantasy dream project for your time may not be worth your time and effort. Like, it may not be worth it to you right now to give up 4 hours to go put all those things in files and create labels and put them in a nice little neat box somewhere. I don't mean to be poking on you. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to tease you particularly. But it's a good example of, it seems like a good idea, but it's going to take a long time to make that happen. And that amount of time is not available in my schedule. There's too many. Yes.
Garage sale.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
So
It's not
Ann
happening.
is suggesting a
No.
garage sale. Like,
No.
we put things aside because we're going to have a garage sale. But the prep and the actual garage sale never really happens, right? It's just sort of a pipe dream. So I get that from clients a lot. It's a way that clients divert things from leaving the house. I'm saving that for the garage sale. Yeah, okay. So then 6 months later, when the garage sale hasn't happened, we have this conversation
Because
about
it's too hot.
it's not worth your time, you don't make enough money for all the effort it takes, it's too hard, right? But sometimes you're invested in the illusion that you're going to get the perfect filing system, right? So be honest with yourself about what you're going to do with your time. And if the answer is, I'm never going to sit down and make the garage sale stuff happen, then I can stop listing it on my list of things to do. I can stop gathering a pile in the garage for the imaginary garage sale, right? I can scratch it off the to-do list. I can abort it before it ever happens, is what I'm saying. Kill it now, right? Okay. Yeah, that was okay. Accept that your time is finite. This is another version of about time. You can make a to-do list as if you're going to live to be 1,000 years old. So when you're 20, you have many more years to accomplish all the things you want to accomplish in your life. When you're 50, you have a little bit less time to accomplish these things, right? So I think that the things that linger year after year on the to-do list and never actually happen, you have to ask yourself, okay, has that ship sailed? Like, has that dream now not become a reality because of the trajectory of my life? Like, I'm not going to get into Peace Corps now, you know, whatever. I'm just making one up. But the idea being that there are some things that we hope for, that we aim for, that we hold on to well past when it makes sense anymore, right? Like you've made choices in life and things start to fall off the list that you can do, right? And you have to pick things on the list that you can do. So keeping these things that you can now never do on the to-do list to mock you is helping that to-do list make you feel bad. So I'm not advocating surrendering your dreams in life. I don't want to put that out there, but I do want to say, you know, don't let something sit on the to-do list when you know it's probably not a realistic goal anymore. And for the express purpose of not bringing you pain and suffering or, you know, making you feel bad. I don't want you to feel ashamed that it's sitting out there and it's been out there for 20 years and you know in the back of your head it's never going to happen. And so it doesn't need to be there to poke you anymore, right?
Well, and part of that too is you kind of have to, you can give yourself permission to no longer care.
Right.
A lot of stuff goes on my to-do list because I have a fleeting thought. It would be really nice someday to take this, you know, box of photos and try and figure out who all the people are, you know, and that seems like a good idea. And then, you know, 2 years later when I've never gotten around to doing it, it's really okay to go, you know what, that really just must not have been that important to me. And I can take it off the list. It's just, because it's
and the idea of saying, you know, I cared about that before, but I don't really care about that
or,
now.
you know, another one for me is read such and such article that I found. You know, I'll save a PDF of it somewhere and I'll make a note to myself that I want to read it. And if I haven't gotten around to reading it in 3 years, it's probably not even
That
relevant
ship has
anymore.
sailed, right? Exactly. His to-do list is massive. Let me just say that, okay? So he's past the 3 items a day thing. He's way beyond that. But he does make the point, which is what you care about now, you may not care about 2 years from now. And so if it goes on as an idea and the idea no longer interests you, it's okay to go, scratch it off, right? See, you just said it. Okay. So he was saying what I had written down for the next thing.
Oh no.
That's okay.
Sorry.
It's all right. It's cool. That's exactly it. My point today really was you can go and learn how to do to-do lists, and there's a million versions of them out there. And there are experts who have spent years creating systems that work well. Franklin Covey to getting things done. There's a version, there's electronics, there's paper, there's whatever. But it needs to be a tool that is useful to you and not a way to shame yourself and make yourself feel bad. And the people that I tend to work with are people that are struggling with clutter already and trying to manage their tasks. They don't need any help making themselves feel bad, right? So this is a way that you can be supportive to yourself and let you accomplish and get to the end of your list one day. Now, is it the list of a superwoman? No, but who cares? It's your list and you got to the end of it. And you can have the win. And that's the goal. You want to be able to get to the win at the end and feel encouraged instead of discouraged, right? I want you to be happy when you do your tasks. That's why I go work with people, because when we got to the end of the day and there was 30 boxes out in the garage, she was super happy because we had undone a bunch of boxes. She started at the beginning of the day and she was miserable, and she got to the end of the day and she was happy. And that's what we're aiming for you. We want you to be able to do that for yourself, right? So I want you guys, if you're willing, to share some to-do list experiences with me. Like, where does it fail for you? Or where have you had success? Or what questions do you have about to-dos? Yes, ma'am.
I think mine is, I kind of put them in too many different places. I mean, I have a sticky on my calendar, but then I forget to look at it. And then I try to put it on my calendar at home or on my computer or my phone. I don't like that I do that. But
You don't like that you make it electronic?
I'd rather have it in one place and remember it's in one place.
Right.
I think that's my big problem.
And that is a problem for a lot of people. When I work in houses, I find a lot of lists all over the place on a whole bunch of scrap pieces of paper. So one of the things that I tell people to do is buy a central little notebook that you carry around with you like the cell phone. Like you think of it as an attachment to your cell phone. Whether it's this big or whether it's this big, it doesn't matter. I don't care. If you're into electronics and you like playing on the phone, make it be in the phone. If you are better writing, sometimes writing it with pencil, paper, doing that whole writing with the pen thing helps you remember it better. It helps you stay engaged with it better. Whichever works for you. But making all the scribbles in one book is like a revolution, because then you don't have a million little pieces of paper floating around everywhere. And where you don't have to remember where it is in the book, it can be anywhere in the book. As long as it's in the book, you can sit there and flip until you find it eventually, right? So that is a behavior modification to think about, okay, I have to have a notebook where I take all my notes, whatever kind. I want to buy stuff. I want to look at this article up. I want to call this person. Here's a phone number somebody gave me. Here's the name of a product. Whatever the notes are. If you write all those random pieces of information in one little notebook and keep it, you keep up with your keys in your cell phone, right? Like those are the magic things you got to have. If you have a little place to take notes that you treat as important as the cell phone, it will be a huge help to you, because it won't matter if you write in the front of the book or the back of the book. It's not lost. It's not going anywhere. All you have to do is flip the pages until you find the relevant piece, right? So that modification of writing it down all in one place really helps people that are ADD, scattered, losing, moving locations a lot, anything that makes it hard to keep up with the list. Because I go through and in the sweep of papers, when I talk about opening the box of mail that they've swept off the table and dumped in there, half of what comes out is incomplete to-do lists, like on every piece of paper from the house, newspaper, envelope, whatever. So it's a way, if you can just make that one, you don't have to do anything fancy inside the book. You just have to get it in the book, and you just have to make the book as important as the cell phone. Carry it around in the purse, take it in and out of the car, move it around with you just like the cell phone does. And if you can do that, it will be a revolution. And it's not high tech, it's not expensive, it's just about where is that stupid book. Before I write down, somebody's telling me something and you're going, where's the piece of paper I can write on? You need to be modifying your thoughts to where's my little book. So you can flip it open real fast and write whatever you were going to write. It doesn't have to be pretty, whatever. Does that make sense? I think that will be that's worth trying to do behavior modification to give you that. I know it's in here somewhere. It's in here somewhere. And that will be really helpful.
Well, then are you talking about transferring it from that little piece of paper to your notebook, like I call it a day timer?
Well, no, I would say that anytime you want to write something down, your default is the notebook, the day timer, whatever. That you don't reach for the scratch of paper. You don't pull out a new pad every time. You go and find the notebook to write. When you're on the telephone, somebody's going to give you a phone number. You say, hold on, and you get the notebook out and you write in it. So you just train yourself to go always to that bundle of paper. And when I'm trying to start with people, they're like 47 pieces of paper that all have things listed on them, right? And they don't want to transfer them. Well, I will take those pieces of paper and cut the list out and slap it in with some Scotch tape. Right. You don't have to copy it all down again. I mean, you get started, you can find your diverse list from everywhere, cut those suckers up and slap them in with tape.
I would have one recommendation, and that, because I do the notebook thing, but when I would number the notebooks as you go, because you will end up with more than one notebook, and then you will wonder, which notebook is it in?
Put the dates on it for sure.
Yeah, you can date the outside when you start it.
Start and end.
And then up in the corner of the page, I would write, like for me, it's a client, what the client name at the top of the page, like if I had a phone conversation or something. So, But one thing I have had a problem with is oh my gosh, is it in the pink one or the purple one? Which, of the last 3 notebooks, where
yeah, because you filled up. Well, you don't have 3. She's not saying she has 3 running. She's saying
Right.
she filled up one and went to the
Finished,
next one
and
and the
maybe
next
in the
one, and
last-
then she has to go get data out of the first one. Well, yeah. But the idea is you're only ever carrying one, and if you go park the complete one somewhere, and you can sort of orient them by date, you can at least get your hands back. Even so, searching through 3 notebooks is easier than searching through every paper in your house looking for the list, right? So I think it's just a way of concentrating. For people there are people that prefer to write down by hand. It helps them remember, it helps cement, whatever. And being able to go to one very concrete place to find this stuff, it really is helpful.
Well, and to clarify that, those notebooks, I mean, only the one that you're currently using should be capturing to-dos.
Yes,
I mean,
yes,
any
yes.
one that you've retired shouldn't include to-do list items anymore. It maybe reference notes for conversations and notes on how you completed
Yeah, but you're not adding anything
but
new
you're not
up to it.
there are no to-do lists left in those.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes, ma'am.
Thinking keeping a to-do list on a computer is somewhat helpful if you tend to write down everything at first glance, and then when it's visible and undeletable, it makes you feel guilty. But I'd say my biggest problem is having to find a category for everything, thinking I should do something in each of 5 categories every day, and trying to decide definitely where this gray area belongs under answer your email or do your social network.
So you're trying to follow a system where you're putting the to-dos under various category types. This is personal, this is business, this is email, this is whatever. I'm making them up.
Yes, I have.
And then you don't know what to do with them.
I've had to-do files with 20 categories on one page or 10 spreadsheets in one file, trying to find room for every category every day. It's a quick
Right.
path to near insanity.
Right. Well, and I think sometimes you just have to go bigger. So when most people start sorting or categorizing things, it gets narrower, and the more they think about it, the more narrow the categories get. And so instead of having 4, you have 50, right? Like I was watching somebody sort books today, and when she was standing there talking to me, she said there was 5 categories, but every book that she picked up went in a new category. So at the end, the table was completely covered. She's like, well, I guess I had more categories than I thought. I was like, yeah. So when you find yourself sort of drowning in the detail, I would take a step back and look for the bigger umbrella. Find a way to say the A, B, C, really bigger. So step up from the detail and find a category that's really broad. Because you don't want to be near insane at the end, right? And if it's separate from 2 others, that's still breaking it down a little, and it's on the list somewhere. Like it needs to be on the list. Pull it up higher and come up with a bigger category. And sometimes you got to talk that through with people. Like, what would be the big umbrella here? I have those conversations a lot. So what's the big umbrella this falls under? So here's all these craft supplies, right? And these are 5 different crafts, but the big umbrella is hobby, right? So all the hobby stuff is going to go in the same place, even though there's 37 crafts happening in the hobby room, right? So you want to come up go up a step, and maybe that will help. Yes?
You use Evernote, right?
I have used Evernote, yes.
Have you still?
Yeah, I have lists and things in them, yeah.
What else? And you can use that for your computer.
Yeah. The Evernote has access on everything.
Okay, so
It's all syncing up. Mm-hmm.
it syncs up.
Mm-hmm.
Is that still the best thing you've seen? Because I just installed it and I can't make heads or tails out of it.
It requires some training. It's not super intuitive right off the bat, but it's sort of a free space to play. It's a very unformed space to play, so you can design it. You can make use of it how you want. But there's lots of training out there about it. So you just have to listen, read, talk. Yeah, you're making the face.
Yeah.
So, do what makes you work.
Is that an app? I'm asking. Is that an app?
It is. It's an app on the...
They say you get the premium for a year if you sign up. What's the caveat to that?
Yeah, they just give you some fancier features. I wouldn't worry about it until you decide that Evernote makes you happy, and then I would do that.
Well, I know they say it gives you the premium for a year, but after that you...
Yeah, then you get charged. Yeah, so don't...
Unless you cancel it right before.
I don't know the answer to that, actually.
Make a note on your calendar.
Yeah, I mean, there's a version that's always free, is what I'm saying, and you can
Is
use
that
the
what
always
you
free
use?
version, and yes, that's what I use. Yes, yes,
Can you
ma'am.
talk more about how to clear just clutter in a room and the different, if you have organized files, mine is not thrown everywhere. It's very organized, neat, orderly piles, but
Okay, are you talking about paper exclusively?
no.
Okay, so give me an example of a couple of piles.
Stuff.
What's
like
the categories?
Clothing, maybe stuffed toys. It's my child, when you have children, as you probably know, you've got more stuff, not just your stuff, but somebody
Right.
else's stuff.
You imagine extra people, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So you're clearing other people's things, plus you're trying to make heads or tails of your things. And,
Right.
you know, in order to set up the bigger piece of furniture, things need to be organized and cleared out of the way. You've gained more stuff because of the other person. So how would you go about it? I do get stuck in that, seeing the forest and not, you know, I logically can think, well, yes, I should just do one section at a time, even if it's 1 square foot a day.
Right,
or a
right.
week.
well, and usually in terms of sorting through stuff, for me, the first step, the simplest step is, am I keeping it, am I not keeping it? If you go through that process of, I'm keeping it, or it's trash, recycling, donation.
I always find an excuse, though. I
What
used
if
to
I
get
need
rid
it?
of things so easily, and now I'm having a hard time getting rid of things.
Right,
And I'll find an excuse to keep it.
yeah.
There's an emotional tie.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And
So
that's why.
none of us can relate to that, right? Yeah, okay, so you're just
among
describing my
friends.
business, right? This is why I have a business, right? Because everybody gets in that place. So, A, keep toss, keep recycle, keep donation. If you're having trouble letting it go, make a maybe pile. It's sort of like a marination pile. So if the things that you're wondering about, go put them in a box, stick them by the back door, stick them in the garage, where you can still see it, but that it's not in the house anymore. Sometimes if you let it age in place, if you let it marinate somewhere out of your purview, it will lose its attachment, right? It'll sort of get less
It could be
exciting
more
to you.
of
It'll
a
get stale.
keepsake.
That's a perfect
Or it
word.
could become more of a keepsake.
It may be.
Yeah, 'cause
And
you've got
Keepsakes are the
emotional
slippery slope, right?
tie. Yeah.
All things could be a keepsake, but how much of your house can you really surrender to keepsake? So that's one where you have to decide, okay, I have this much space.
How much of your house could you is there a percentage? Like 10%?
Well, I think it's
5%?
different for everybody, but
Okay.
every inch that you surrender to keepsake is an inch that you have given up as living space, right? Because the definition of keepsake is it's parking forever and not going to be used, right? So when you determine that this box of things is something that it's the family photos, it's the prom dress, it's the whatever that you have to keep, you're making a choice. I am not going to live in this space anymore. I'm going to store. This just became the storage unit portion of my house, which is fine. Everybody has keepsakes, and where we get hung up is we surrender more house to the keepsakes than we do to live in, right? So you want to draw that balance for you and your family. Like how much of it do you want to surrender, and how much living space would you rather have? There's going to be things that are like, the extra kitchen gadgets that aren't going to be keepsakes. The photos are going to be keepsakes, but the kitchen gadgets aren't. So you can put those in the box and put them in the garage and let them get stale and go back 6 weeks from now and see if you still feel like you got to have that pancake maker, the icy machine, the whatever, right? Sometimes just moving it, it becomes part of the landscape. When it's been in the kitchen forever and the same shelf forever, it becomes part of the furniture almost. And then when you move it away, it's like, oh, we opened the hole, that's wrong, right? But if you move it out of the way and get used to the hole not having the icy machine, eventually that becomes okay. And then you realize that you don't really need that icy machine. You were just used to it being part of the landscape. So if you're having trouble letting it go all the way out the door, you want to get it halfway out the door into the garage and see if that helps. Let it get old there. Are you about to talk me out?
I am.
Okay. All right, so I want to say thanks to everybody for coming, and we'll see you next month.